Hello, this is Gordon and thank you for watching part 2 of TaroWorks language support. In part 1, we talked about how multiple languages works with TaroWorks and how to build jobs and surveys using characters from any language, and how you can change the language on both Android side and Salesforce side also. So what we'll talk about this time is how Salesforce handle languages and we'll combine the learning together. So in Salesforce, there's something called the Translation Workbench. It allows you to translate object names, field labels, options in many different languages. So let's take a look. In Setup, down on the left, where there's Administration Setup, click on that, and underneath is the Translation Workbench. Expand it, and you'll see the translation settings. Make sure the Workbench is enabled. Once enabled, you'll see a list of supported languages. Then, add the language that you want. Following the example from part 1, we'll add Nepali. Now, don't be surprised if the language you want is not here, because Salesforce already has translation for 13 different languages, so what you'll have to do is choose one of these languages as a proxy. So in this case, let's choose Russian. It may not be the ideal, but it is the best approach possible. Let's check Save. The Russian proxy translation for Nepali is now active. Click on Translate, and it'll ask you what language you want to translate this for, and which setup components you want to translate. So the setup components are things such as custom apps, custom fields, pick list values. Usually, you're most interested in these. You can see that the Russian proxy language is available. We'll select it and go into pick list value. Say we want the gender field of contact object to be displayed in Nepali words. So what should we do? First, choose contact object. Now you'll be able to see all the possible fields that you can edit. Expand the gender field to see the options within. Edit the option label translations. I'm going to copy in the Nepali words for male and female. Save the changes. Great. So what actually happens then is that for whatever values you have put, if the master value is female, then a Russian user is looking at the record in Salesforce, they'll see this instead. And if the master value is male, then a Russian user will see the other value. And basically, that is how the Translation Workbench works. So here's my user record. I'm going to change my language to Russian later, but for now I'll stick with English. And here's the contact record for Brian. I'll set his gender to be male. Very good. So right now, since I'm an English user, I'll see the pick list value for his gender as male in English. If I change my language to Russian, and here we go, the first thing you'll see is that the setup page itself has changed. So now here's the contact record for Brian again. Remember that in the Translation Workbench, we have set this value male to translate into the Nepali script because Russian is just a proxy. For this instance, I'll never use Russian, but I will use Nepali. Notice that the name is in English, but everything else is pretty much in Russian. The reason for this is because standard objects such as contact, accounts, Salesforce already supplies the translation to those. Now, if you have added custom fields such as the ones here, you'll see that I have never translated this, so that's why it remained in English. You can change these field labels to match later. So the key thing here is to note how the Translation Workbench works. I can select the gender drop list, but because I'm now a Russian user, the value is what I've put in, which is actually in Nepali. Let me change back to English before I confuse myself. Good things I remember where the buttons are. Perfect. Again with the Workbench, you can translate many things. Not only can you translate pick list values, you can also translate custom fields. So here, it'll ask you which objects if you want to change. Contact, you can change the field label for any languages you choose. Now this is really handy, allowing you to customize the user interface. So I hope this introduction helps you to get started. If you have more questions, please consult documentation from salesforce.com. What we'll do now is to put the pieces together. With the current version, you can make jobs and survey in a particular language. Let's say Nepali, for instance. The data will then come in as Nepali. If you have English users and Nepali users looking at the data in Salesforce, what can you do? Well, there are two ways. Now, some people will simply create options in both languages, so they'll have an option with both English and Nepali together as one. This way, both teams can read without using the translation workbench. However, this sometimes can cause problems, especially if there are many characters in the choices or if there are more than two languages. So I'll show you the better way to have the data coming in as one language and then be seen in various other languages in Salesforce. The key thing is that this works for pick list and multi-pick list values only, so if they're actually going to type in a word for the text field, it's not going to translate for you. And this is what you would expect, as this is the extent of what Salesforce can do for you out of the box. Now, what it cannot do is to take data from your operation from many locations in various languages and translate it all into English. In a future release, this will be possible. So after all that talk, how does this actually work? You first must determine the language that the data from the field is in. In this case, it would be Nepali, and we will have already created this survey question that will send the information back in Nepali. Here's the question to ask about gender. It is a single selection question and is going to be either male or female. So that's step 1. Step 2, and this step can be a little bit counterintuitive, especially if you have started creating your objects and lists in English. You need to find the field, the gender field in the contact object in our case. And you can see the master value for the options, change them into Nepali. Now this is because when TaroWorks sends the information in, the data will be compared against these master values. For all Salesforce cares, the master value could be in binary numbers. So for male, I'll replace with this text here, and for females, I will use that text there. Now that's done, your master value is in the language that's going to be sent by TaroWorks. Next thing, you need to use the translation workbench to create the translation so that you can read it. Go to translation. For language, currently I'm an English user. The setup component I'll choose is the pick list value. The object is for contact. Expand the gender field. Type in the English words female here and male there. Save. Great. So that's done for now. Once the translation is set, go to the translation settings page and make sure the English language is active. Otherwise, everything else will be in English, but you'll still have Nepali pick list options shown. So if we now refresh the page, here we go, it will show you the choices, male and female in English. Okay, we have handled the data coming in as Nepali and seeing the data in English. So what about your Nepali staff working in Nepal? What they need to do is go to the translation workbench for the Russian proxy language, find the pick list value for gender as before, and make sure it matches. So both the master pick list value and the pick list value label translation should be in Nepali. Now that is done, I'll change my language into Russian for a quick test, the proxy language for Nepali. Now, if I refresh, and this is what I see, wonderful. There we go. It has been translated. So again, to go through the steps. Step 1, create a survey with a choice in the language that you want. Step 2, map your single or multi-select question into a corresponding field. Step 3, go into your translation workbench under Setup, make sure it is enabled and all the languages and proxy languages as well that you want to use is enabled. So you need to check Edit and make sure that these active boxes are checked. Step 4, click Translate. Find the pick list value for the object that you want. Make sure that your master pick list value is for the language that is coming in, Nepali, and then for the English side it is translated. Then, check the other languages to make sure the translation is correct. Once that is done, you're ready to go. So what this means, to use the example we've been showing, is that data comes in as Nepali, but as the English user, you can read the answer in English and your Nepali colleagues can read the answer in Nepali. Okay, here are some important caveats. 1. You must use Unicode UTF-8 encoded characters, as I've mentioned before. 2. You can have Salesforce translate answers destined for the pick list and multi-pick list fields. It cannot translate answers in text fields. 3. You may have to use a proxy language as a workaround, as you have noticed in our case, because there are no Nepali option, so I have to choose Russian as a proxy. This could cause difficulty with using standard object and other features in Salesforce. Now there are only 13 languages in total, so there's a limit on how many choices you can accommodate at once. Let's talk about upcoming features. When TaroWorks switch into Salesforce Open Authentication, this will allow us to leverage the translation workbench even more. So this means that you can aggregate answers in multiple languages and run them into one report, and then you can read. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you have any questions, please contact your account manager to arrange a consulting session. Have a nice day.